What's going on, everybody? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and before we get started, if you could please hit like and more importantly subscribe, and we'll get going on this fly. So today we're going to tie a nymph, jig nymph version or variant on the Alexandra. So in the vise we've got the Firehole 523, and this is a size 10 for the bead, Spawn football bead in black, size 6mm. And to position everything and solidify that bead's placement, we're going to add some non-lead 0.020 weighted wire wraps, 8 or 9 or whatever number floats your boat, sinks your fly, that's the one you go with. Round that front edge over after we cut it and do the same on the back. So if you're not familiar with the Alexandra, this is a very old Scottish/British fly, and one of the few to actually be banned because of how effective it was. So for that purpose alone, when I first ran across this pattern, I had to tie it just to see if they were sincere, and it works, and it works in any variant you tie it up. So make it your own, tie some variations on this and toss it to the fish you're looking at and see what happens. You're gonna love it. All right, let's get some thread going here. Got some UniThread 6/0 black, and let's just take that end off, and 45-degree angle wraps up and back 2 different times, just to set up some X's so that when we run this thread like so between each wrap, it'll pull all those X wraps down and into those wires, and nothing's gonna move on us. Ta-da, our fly is ready. So the Alexandra typically has a red tail, and we're going to sub in some red Marabou. We don't need a ton here. This is absolutely just a trigger. The length is not going to be super long, so it's not going to give a lot of kick by any means. We're just going to do, right around body length or hook length for the tail. So once you have that, transfer the pinch to your off tying hand. And we're just going to tie this so that it comes off from that last flat section on the shank. And we're not going to go over into where it curves at all. Just get that started like so. And when I trim these butt ends, I'm looking at where that wire ends that we just tied in for the weight. And I want to cut that so that when I tie this down, those butts roughly meet up right at the back where those wires are. And this is how we progressively build an even underbody. All right, and right there's my last wrap. And we're going to come through and cover all this up here with another material, so don't get too overzealous about what's going on with these Marabou fibers in the body yet. All right, so next we're going to get into our rib and get that tied in. And for the rib, I've got some silver ultra wire, and this is size Brassie. You could definitely use medium if you wanted to really pronounce that rib, but we're going silver rib on a silver body, so the segmentation is not quite as important as if, say, you're using a contrasting color. All right, get that tied in really securely, and there's one Marabou fiber there. I'm sure you guys can see, and now it's not there. All right, so let's get this thread up toward the bead here, and I'm going to tie in our body material. And so for this, I'm going to use some Saltwater Flashabou, and this is holographic silver. And instead of tying it in at the butt and wrapping up, I'm going to tie it in at the head. And I'm trying to keep my sausage fingers out of the view here. And once I get this started, I'm going to wrap down this tag end here a little bit, and then come back up to where I've got this wrapped in or tied in, like so. At this point, a little super glue gel. I'm just going to put a very thin amount, like so, and then just very slightly spread it out. And this is why we're going to wrap this flash all the way to the back and then back up over itself. And so what that does is gives us a better chance at getting full coverage on this body, as well as a more even coverage or a body. And then when we wrap this over itself and back up and then use the rib, this is going to be a really strong body that's not going to come apart on us, because I can just tell you now, this thing gets chomped on pretty badly. The fish love this fly. All right, so as you can see now, we've wrapped all the way down. Some of that super glue squirts out between the wraps, so that when we come back like we are now, it's going to still touch some of that super glue and really make for a strong body. All right, a couple wraps behind, pull it back, and get a couple wraps in front before you trim that out. And we're ready for our rib. Now in this you can counter wrap or wrap normal, because we've already done 2 layers of that flash. So let's just go ahead and give it a normal wrap here. And as far as spacing, I'm going based on like some of the older traditional salmon flies / steelhead flies. And so I want to work in at least 5 wraps evenly spaced all the way up. So on this 6th wrap now, this will be covered up. We won't see it, but the 5 visible body wraps would definitely fit into the mentality of classic salmon and steelhead patterns. All right, trim that wire out. If you've got any kind of thumbnail, just use that and push it over, and it's ready to tie down the rest of the way. All right, looking good so far. All right, so now let's turn this guy over. What we need is a topper on this fly. And so for the topper, we are going with one of my favorite materials, Peacock Sword. This is not like regular peacock eyed sticks, obviously, not like pre-stripped hurls or any of that. Just a unique feather. And you'll see this in a lot of classic patterns. But what's great about it is there are hues of blues and greens, and then of course your classic peacock colors as well coming out. And it just waves and moves at them, and they can't help but eat it. So when I tie this in, I want it to sit halfway back on that tail. I don't want it to cover all the way back, just roughly halfway. And if you really want to get picky, you can look at the curvature on each feather and then base off that where you want to tie it in. And if you want that curve to kind of flow over the hook like so, then by all means take your time and be patient. You can get it to do that. But the good news is, if you're not very patient and don't want to be picky, as long as it's on the top there, it's going to get eaten. Trim those butts out as cleanly as you can. You don't want to eat up too much room here. All right, looking good so far. Not too much left here. So let me get a couple extra wraps there. And now we're going to give this thing some gills, if you will. And so for that, I've just got some stripped Goose Biots. And these are red. These are from Hareline. And I'm going to tie these in on both sides. And I want this just to reach to the end of the body. And I want it to sit almost exactly right in the lateral line, right down the side of this fly. So I'll show you on my side there. And then I'm going to do the same on your side. And I'm not too worried about these popping out and sticking out or any of that. Just want them in there for now. I'll show you how we prop them up here in a second. Get that tied in nice and securely. Again, this fly gets eaten like crazy. So anything you can do to make it just a little stronger, make it last for one more fish, you'll be glad you did. All right, like so. And now I'm going to come back to almost where our last wraps or the tie-in are. I'm just going to use my bodkin and push those biots forward on both sides, like so. Once I've got them propped just a little bit, I'm going to take one wrap behind this guy and not let that thread slip too much on me. And this is the tough part. So I'll do yours first. Get that out of there. One wrap of thread right behind it and one up by the head. And that will make sure that this isn't going to slick back on us at all. So now I'm going to come up behind my side with 1 thread wrap, prop it, and then solidify it by wrapping in the front. So now you'll see I've gotten those little arms slash legs to pop out a little bit. And now for the coup de grace, the grand finale. I know you're all excited for this. We've got a saddle hackle feather in black. And as you see, I've cleaned off a little section here for a tie-in spot. And much like we did with the Flash, we're actually going to tie this in over the eye. And you don't have to, but for this application, I just like the way it wraps. And then I'm going to come, get these fibers out of there, in front. At this point now, what I've set myself up for is to begin these wraps like so. And just progress up and right behind that head. And if you wanted to, this would be a great spot for some soft hackle. Really let it flow, and then let it come where that peacock sword meets, and oh man, it's a great variation. But again, no crazy rules here. We're just tying flies to catch fish. So if there's something you want to try or add you think would work better, by all means, give it a shot. Right, as carefully as you can, trim out that quill like so. And now we're just ready for a whip finish. Maybe 2. And there we go. So this is a great fly for all species of trout. You can tie it a little bit bigger, go chase some steelhead and salmon with it, especially Atlantic salmon. Or tie it really beefy and go chase some bass and just one of those universal bugs that actually does get eaten no matter what you're throwing it for. All right, get that thread out of there, and I'm just going to grab some Loon hardhead clear. We're going to cover all these thread wraps and make sure our fly is as strong as it can be. And in that spirit, if you wanted to, you could definitely run some UV resin on that body just to add even a little more strength. And there's just a few more thread wraps in there waiting to be covered. There we go. Looks pretty good. All right, and there we have it. This is the nymph or nymphal form of the Alexandra. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Once again, if you did, please hit like and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the water.